Now we're on Daf Yud Amid Beis. The Yomim Tovim, the Brisa continues, Haksuvim Megillas Taanit. Megillas Taanit has a list, an enumerated list of days on which we had miracles, and therefore we commemorate those miracles with joyous celebration, and on those days we don't fast. We learned in the Brisa, Al Yomar Adam Talmid Ani. A person is humble, and he says, I don't fit this description of a Yachid. Any royalios Yachid, I'm not appropriate. I can't start these fasts. It's not appropriate for me. It would be like you or us, like Gaiva, if I would say, oh, I'm going to fast these 3 original fasts. So that's something that you shouldn't say. Elakol Talmidei Chachamim Yechidim. Every scholar, even though he's still a Talmud, he's still studying at the feet of his Rebbe, nevertheless, he should consider himself as a Yachid, and that's not considered arrogance on his part, because we want to beef up the people who are fasting so that God will bring the rains. Ezu Yachid Bezu Talmud. What is the difference between Yachid and Talmud? Yachid is called Sheroy Lemanoso Parnas Al Etzibur. It means that the Talmidim come around, they ask him questions anywhere, from any part of Shas, and he knows how to answer those questions. He's a leader over the tzibur. But Talmud is called Sholem Osad Var Halacha Bilimudo. You can ask him a question about what he's learning, and he has mastery over that part of the Torah that he's learning, but don't ask him from another Masechta. The Omer, he can answer you, Afilu b'Masechta V'Kala. He knows what he's learning well, even if it's not such a popular Masechta, like Masechta Kala. Kala is actually an amalgamation of brisos that start with Kala b'lo bracha asura l'bayla kenida, and that's a Masechta that's not usually studied. This Talmud is studying it, and he mastered that Masechta. He's considered a Talmud. What we learned earlier, that the Talmud should consider himself as a Yachid and begin those 3 fasts, that doesn't apply to every rank and file person in Klal Yisrael. For a person who's not even a Talmud, he's on a lower level, maybe he learns a couple of Mishnayos here and there, but that's about it. It would be gaiva on his part to announce, well, I'm going to fast together with the Yechidim and together with the Talmidim. And the Brisa continues and says that not everyone should consider himself a Talmud. Like, for example, the Talmidei Chacham needs to wear special, beautiful, splendid garments. And a rank and file person, if he puts on those garments, he wears the kapata, so to speak, then he's, again, about Gaiva. He's not on that level. Divrei Rabbi Meir. That's the opinion of Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Yossi Omer, that just like we saw before, that we encourage a Talmud to consider himself as a Yachid and begin those 3 fasts, is Osa, every single person should make himself into a Yachid. We want to encourage as many people as possible to join in this fast, these 3 fasts. He'll be remembered for good. He's not fasting because he's, boasting about himself. Fasting is very uncomfortable. He's doing it for the cause and as part of the religious practice and piety and hoping that God will accept our prayers and our fasting and bring down the rains. But again, Rabbi Yossi would also agree to Rabbi Meir that not every person should wear the garments of a scholar, of a Talmud Chacham. That would be guy. But to join in the fast, Rabbi Yossi says that's okay. Tanya, either we have another brisa, lo kol harotza las hasma yachid oseh. Not everyone is allowed to join in these fasts. Talmud oseh. But if he's a Talmud, he can make himself into a Yachid, and he's confessed. When you say that a person should not consider himself on that high level, that's only b'dvar shel shevet. That's only to wear these special garments. But if it's a matter of fasting, Osa, he can consider himself a Yachid b'zoch latov. He's only trying to commensurate and identify with the cause. We learned in a brisa, Now, here's a very fascinating question. I'm going to test you and just to know your intuition. That's all I'm asking. I'm not testing you to see whether a yochid, a talmid, or just a rank and file sins. But what would you say about the following question? When a person joins this group that's fasting, let's say Monday, Thursday, Monday, why is he fasting? I'll give you two choices. One choice is because he wants to bring down the rains. If there was no problem of rains, drop it. No need to fast. The other option is that it's true, while I don't deny that the backdrop and the original cause for the fasting, the necessity, was the lack of rain. But the Taanit is meaningful in and of itself. It's an expression of servitude to Hashem. It purifies me, it elevates me. What would you say? Did I give away the answer? I don't know.
It's all this in the ladder about anything of this world.
Correct. And that's what we're going to learn now in this price. The person started fasting. Alatzara, the Avra. And in the middle of the fast, the reason for the fast, like the lack of rain, just dissipated into thin air, and now it's raining. It's great. Or alachol, he's fasting on behalf of a sick person. V'nisrape, now Baruch Hashem, he's in remission. He's off the hospital bed. He came home. Nevertheless, harezem is anu mashlim. He should continue his fast, because if he terminates his fast, then he indicates that this was all part of a bargain deal, that he struck up a deal with the Ribono Shel Olam. I'm going to fast, and you'll bring down the rains or heal my body. And now there's no real Taanit l'shem shamayim. It was all done simply for a purpose. Okay. Now we get into a very interesting discussion. You know that in certain areas of the world, there are no rains, and therefore they're fasting. In other areas, there's ample rains. What happens if you travel from one place to the other? So we have a principle which is formulated in a parak called Makom Shenagu B'Sachim, that you pick up the chumrah of both the place that you left and the place that you enter into. This is very relevant, by the way, to Yom Tov Shein Shel Golis. Like, for example, I'm an Israeli, I go to Teaneck, and they are adding another day of Yom Tov, the 8th day of Pesach. I'm dying for a piece of bread, but, well, the bakeries hopefully are closed, but in any event, at least let me eat hummus. You know what I'm saying? It's kidneys. Yeah. So that's called makom sheholach lisham. You have to pick up those from. So holich mi makom she'ein mitzanim. So he lives in a place where Baruch Hashem they have ample rain. L'makom, and he now finds himself in makom she'misanim because they don't have rain. Hareza misana imoya. Then he has to pick up the chumrei makom sheholach lisham. Now the opposite situation. The scenario is mi makom she'misanim. He leaves a place where they're already fasting, and they're not fasting. He still has to fast. Why? Because he started a fast, and he has to pick up the chumrah of makom sheholach misham, the place that he originated, which is known in the Mishnah in Sachim. It's called makom sheyotza misham. And mashlim, and therefore he has to continue all the fasts that his place of origin, where he lives. Now again, if he moves and he uproots himself on a permanent basis, that's a different story. Now we're talking about the first case that we discussed. A person leaves his hometown where they're not fasting, and he finds himself in a place, in a location where they're fasting, but he forgot about it. Shachar. And so he started eating and drinking. Al Yisroel mipnei hatzibur. He should not show up in front of the congregation because he looks very satiated. He had a good meal, and the other people like Avelim. They're almost like in a state of Avelus because they desperately need the rains and they're famished, they haven't eaten. and he's like a chassan, under his chuppah. He's eating a good meal. They give him after the he's having a blast. The al yanig idunim biyatzmo, and he shouldn't say, "Well, look, I already ate, and therefore I'm not shaykh to the mitzvah, the kiyum of tainus. It's not a tainus for me. I already ate, so I might as well eat more and more. Give me a chocolate bar." So that he's not supposed to do. But rather he should immediately stop eating when he realizes that the tzibur is fast. Shenemar, and we're going to derive this from Yaakov Avinu, not in this week's parsha, but the following parsha. Vayar Yaakov ki yesh shever b'Mitzrayim. Yaakov sees that there's food in Mitzrayim. Vayomer Yaakov lebanav lama tisra'u. What does this mean, lama tisra'u? Why do you show yourself? Very strange, ambiguous phrase. Amalem Yaakov Labanov, Yaakov says to his children, this is a deeper meaning of what he was telling you. Altaru asmechem kshatem sveyim. You already went down to Mitzrayim, you purchased some supplies, you've eaten, and the people around you here in the contiguous to Canaan, there are Yishmaelim and Mitzvim and all these people, that's going to cause a tremendous amount of friction and jealousy. Why? Because they'll be jealous of you. And here too, everyone here locally is fasting and you're eating away, you show up and you're satiated. That's going to create friction and tension. Now, once we mentioned the story of Yosef and his brothers, the Gemara goes off Kedarka Bakodesh on a tangent. Vayomer Aleim, when Yaakov sends the brothers down to Mitzrayim, he tells them, Al tirgizu baderech. What does that mean, Al tirgizu baderech? Amar Abelazar, Amalem Yosef li'echav. Oh, I'm sorry. This is not Yaakov. This is Yosef sending the brothers back to Jacob after he had revealed himself. Al tisasku b'divrei halacha, b'dvar halacha baderech. Don't get involved in some halachic pilpul. Because when Chachamim get involved in pilpul, they get really, tzahits, we say in Yiddish, angry at each other, that they throw shtendas at each other. I saw it with my own eyes, by the way, and they're gonna get lost in the derech. So the Gemara asks, Aini, is this really so? The Omar of Eloi bar Brechio. This is when Eliyahu Hanavi goes up on the chariot and he departs from Elisha, he takes leave from Elisha, his Talmud. As they're walking, they're conversing. Until the chariots and the horse of fire separating them, and Eliyahu, arises, ascends to the heavens. But the emphasis here is on aloch v'daber. So therefore, we see from Rav Eloi that when two scholars are on the road, on the journey, they should be discussing things with each other. They should be talking in Torah. Time of the Ikad Dibur. The reason why they were protected from the fire, Elisha and Eliyahu, was because they were busy talking Divrei Torah. Halek if not, says Rav Eloi, in the absence of Dibur Shel Torah, Ru'uyim Lisaret, they should be burnt in the fire. So we see that Talmidei Chacham going together in the derech. If they don't have Divrei Torah, they should be punished for that. How could Yosef tell his brothers that they shouldn't be osek b'derech b'dvar halacha? Lo kasha hol migras holi yunei. When Rav Eloi says that Talmidei Chacham should be osek b'torah b'derech, that's only lemigras, on a superficial level. They should read psukim and just discuss the Tarsha B'Chsav, let's say. But they shouldn't learn it even in depth, holy unit. But if they're learning in depth, that's what Yosef was worried about. They're going to get heavy into the sugya, and therefore they'll lose their way. But Masnisa Tana, we learned in a brisa on this pasuk, al tirgizu badara, al tafsiu gas. You should not take a leap, a step that's more than one am at a time. V'chnisu chamal le'ir, and make sure that when you go out to the derech, you should remain in your urban city up until dark. I'm sorry, when you return home after a journey, make sure to return home when there's still chama, it's still sunlight, because at night it's very dangerous. Al tafsir psia gatsa, don't walk in a large step. The Omar Mar psia gatsa no tell us echad michamesh mos mimor einov shel adam, that a large step will detract 1/500 from your eyesight. Anisu chama leir. And make sure that when you return home, it's still light. You shouldn't be traveling at night. When a person leaves, he departs on the journey, he should go by day. And this is based on the pasuk by Yarel or Ki Tov. That's called Ki Tov, the light of sunrise. So when he comes back into the city at the end of his journey, B'chi Tov, he should return when the sun has not yet set and it's not Lila, because at nighttime there are dangers. You might fall into something, you might get attacked by listim or by chayos ros, etc., etc. Shenemar, with regard to Achei Yosef, it says that when Yosef sent them from Mitzrayim back to Eretz Canaan, it says haboker, or when there was light, vanoshim shulchu, that's when he sent them out. So Yosef was very careful to send them home after it was light, after sunrise. And that means a person, when he's on the journey, on the road, there should be plenty of light, and not to come at night. When a person is in Shnei Ra'avon, he eats a very limited amount of food to satiate himself. And when a person is on the derech, then he should limit his diet. He should not eat his full, to the point of satiation. And here we have machlokas in the Gemara. Why? My time. What's the reason for this? So this can be a machlokas between the Babylonians and the Bnei Eretz Yisrael. Hacha Targimu, here in Bavel, they explained it mishum ma'ayona. Ma'ayona is milashon me'ayin, or may of, meaning because the digestive system, when a person is out on the road and he, it's very bumpy and so forth and so on, it's very hard for his digestive system to work at full capacity. So therefore he should limit the amount of intake of food, because otherwise he's calculated mayo. But for Marav Hamri in Eretz Yisrael, he had a different twist on this. Why should he limit his diet? Mishum mizone, because the supplies that you take out to the derech are limited. They're not endless. And therefore, if he eats too much, he might end up with no food left. So he has to be very ezuchach maros and nolad, pace himself and not eat too much. My beinayu, what's the nafkamina between these two explanations? Ika beinayu, here we turn to Daf Yud Aleph, the Yosiv, the Arba. If a person is traveling by ship, if you're worried about the Kilkul Me'ayim, then it seems that, they had very comfortable cruise liners, and it would not really cause any disturbance to his digestive system. But if you're worried about the amount of food, and maybe you'll exhaust all your supplies, then that would apply even to a ship. Inami, another possibility, as a difference between these two shitas, the ka'azil me'avana li'avana. When he's going from one achsanya is like an inn in a small village, that's where the socharim, those who were traveling itinerant merchants, used to stay over in the villages. And there, apparently, there was an ample supply of food, and you could buy food in those inns. They had kiosks and so forth and so on. But nevertheless, even though he's traveling from one of those inns to another inn, there is a possibility that his stomach will be upset, and therefore he should limit the amount of food. He doesn't have to worry about the supply of food, but about his digestive system. And finally, and with this we'll end, Rav Papa, when he went out on a journey called Parsa, every Parsa that he went, Achil, Chada Rifta, he would eat one loaf of bread. Why? Because Savar, he accepted that view that the reason why you should limit the intake of food when you're out on the road is Mishum Mayona, because we're worried about Yiskalkalu Me'av. He wasn't worried about that. He had a very strong stomach. His digestive system was, perfect, and he didn't have to worry about Kilkul Hameinayim. However, as far as the other sheet is concerned, if you're worried about, the not having ample supplies, Rav Papa didn't accept that sheet, and therefore, since he had a good solid stomach, he was able to eat an entire loaf of bread at every parsa. Whenever he went a parsa, which is about 18 minutes, I don't know, but maybe it's a little longer, he would eat a loaf of bread. Okay, then? Thank you so much for joining me on Zoom or in person.